Austin Faith Dialogue, a public affairs program at the crossroads of religion and life. A series of programs highlighting the social and cultural interaction between the worshiping and larger communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Area Conference of Churches in cooperation with KTBC. Join us now in today's Austin Faith Dialogue.
Hello, welcome to the Austin Faith Dialogue. I'm Dick Hudson at St. Louis Catholic Church and your host today. The Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you through the Austin Area Conference of Churches and television station KTBC Channel 7. Our topic today is the Jewish faith tradition. If we can examine the beginning of the Jewish tradition in Texas, we must go back to the 16th century when a Jewish Portuguese adventurer, Gaspar de Souza, first came to this soil which we now call Texas. But the first significant Jewish presence in Texas started as hardy individuals left the supported communities of the East Coast and migrated to Texas looking for space and economic opportunity. It was this scattered Jewish presence in Texas that encouraged German and Russian Jewish immigrants to come directly to Texas through Galveston as the point of entry. Thus, at the turn of the century, the scattered fragments of Jewish humanity in large and small Texas towns began to draw together in small religious congregations. In 1849, Phineas de Corova earned the distinction of being the first Jew of record in the city of Austin. Born in Philadelphia to a family that descended from Spanish and Portuguese royalty, Phineas moved to Austin from Houston at the invitation of the governor. He was active in the community as a newspaper publisher, land company owner, state senator, and many other positions of public trust. It was a warm September evening in 1876 that 30 Jewish men met for the purpose of forming a Jewish congregation. Land was purchased at the northeast corner of 11th and San Jacinto. The charter of the congregation set forth a threefold purpose: to erect and maintain a building for religious worship, to erect and maintain a religious school, and to own and maintain a private cemetery. The temple was completed in 1884. The Jewish congregation was initially sustained by visiting rabbis for the holidays. But in 1886, it received its first full-time spiritual leader, Dr. Levy. The Jewish community continued to grow, and now in the greater Austin area supports several different congregations: a Jewish community center, a monthly newspaper, and numerous Jewish organizations. Today with us to explore the Jewish traditions and their outreaches are Rabbi Carrie Baker, Harriet Posen, volunteer with the Jewish Community Council, and Rabbi Mark Sack of the Agudas Ahim community. It certainly is a pleasure having you here today.
It's nice to be here.
Harriet, as to help us set our feet on the ground, what's the size that when we think of the Jewish community here?
Well, the Austin Jewish community has really been growing in the last 10 years. A demographic study was conducted this last year, and there are about 4,600 people that we know of.
Is that right? And growing, as you said.
Definitely.
Mark, in your own congregation, how has it been growing?
I would say that since 1980, the congregation has doubled.
Oh,
In
really?
1980, we probably had around 175 families, and now we have close to 350 families.
And you've had a vigorous building program too, as I recall.
That's right. We just finished pouring the slab of our new sanctuary, social hall, and kitchen, and we hope to see some steel erected within the next couple of days.
Oh, those are significant milestones in the history of a congregation.
We're very excited. We're very excited.
There's a number of expressions of the Jewish tradition here present in Austin. Can you kind of delineate for me what they are in some way that I might be able to try and distinguish them other than by name itself?
I think you're referring to the conservative movement or the reform movement or the unorthodox group. Am I correct?
Yes,
Dick, I think that every religious tradition which carries with it a lot of history and customs which are very old is always confronted with trying to integrate its faith tradition with the modern culture that it finds in the outside world. That is certainly true in the Jewish community. And perhaps one way to understand the different religious movements is how we each try to harmonize our Jewish heritage with the outside, let's call it secular culture, that we find here in Austin or really anywhere else in the Western world. You might say, and admittedly this is being simplistic, that the Orthodox community hangs on most dearly to ancient traditions. It also, you might also characterize it as being a fundamentalist movement, as you would characterize a Christian group as being a fundamentalist movement. The overwhelming majority of Orthodox Jews believe that the words of the Bible are literally true, that the Bible was dictated by God to Moses at Mount Sinai, and that all the traditions that you find there are of divine authorship. For convenience sake, I'll move to the other end of the spectrum, and which I would say is the Reform movement. The Reform movement, when faced with a conflict of modern culture and Jewish tradition, might see Jewish tradition as a way to enhance one's life here in the United States or here in Austin, Texas. It might find many aspects attractive about Jewish tradition, but it would see that option to choose those aspects as being subject to personal choice. What you might find is meaningful to you, someone else might not find meaningful to them. The conservative movement tries to move a middle line. We try to maintain somewhat systematic religious practice. We, as a movement, uphold the dietary laws, the laws of kosher, the laws of the Sabbath, the laws of the different holidays, different life cycle traditions. Theologically, you might say that we are somewhat liberal. We are not a fundamentalist movement. If I understand my Christian terms correctly, we do not fall on the side of inerrancy of Scripture. We think that the Bible, as all of Jewish tradition, developed dynamically in response to the forces that it came in contact with in the world around it. How's that?
That's good. I mean, at least that helps begin in a very in a simplistic way give me some tools to separate them with.
Okay.
And that's neat. Carrie, the Jewish community here is represented by a number of congregations, but it seems to me that the Hillel Foundation has kind of a special relationship. Not only your proximity to the campus, but I also think that Portell's part of your unique mission that you have in the Jewish community?
Well, the mandate that we have as a foundation is to serve the Jewish community at the University of Texas. We're part of a network of Hillel foundations that is both national and international, present at many universities throughout the United States, Canada, South America, Europe. But because our challenge is to serve the Jewish community of the campus, that means we have to serve all the different segments that compose that community. In a way, we serve the entire Jewish community in small.
Oh, okay.
So that we deal not only with Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox students, that is those who are religiously motivated, but those who are secularists or identify Jewishly from an ethnic point of view, or identify with Jewish political or social concerns, or any combination of the above. We also function in a way within the confines of the campus in the way that Jewish so-called defense agencies, such as the Anti-Defamation League or the Community Relations Council, do in representing the Jewish community and its concerns to the broader university community.
Okay. And so that you're really, whether it is proportionally correct, but certainly you're a microcosm of the world Jewish community here. What countries are most significant, or continents maybe are most significant in terms of their representation here at UT?
Of course, most of the students are from the United States, and particularly from Texas,
right.
But we have students from Latin America, from South America, from Europe, from the state of Israel, of course, and from the African continent as well. So I'm not aware of any Jewish students from Asia, but that may just be a function of our particular situation. There are some elsewhere. So internationally, as well as religiously and otherwise, we are a microcosm in many ways of the Jewish community as a whole. And we also, therefore, serve a whole variety of functions that are not necessarily restricted to just the so-called congregational functions. We operate in a way as a small Jewish community center for the campus by offering the kinds of cultural programming that might be found in a community center.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a wide variety of things.
How many Jewish students might we find in a fall semester at UT?
Well, it depends how you count, but the best estimate is about 8% of the student body is Jewish, which puts it nowadays at about 4,000.
Okay.
There are people on my board who were UT students some years ago, and remember days when there were 300 and 400 Jewish students at the university. So like the Austin community and the Texas Jewish community in general, campus Jewish community has grown a lot too.
That it has. Harriet, something that has really impressed me is the structure out on Jollyville Road,
Yes.
I believe, and more specifically the Jewish Community Council. Help me a little bit understand its role as it relates and coordinates activities for several of these greater Jewish congregations here.
Well, I think you just used a key word, Dick, and that's coordinate. The Jewish Community Council is an umbrella of sort, and it tries to coordinate and support the different religious institutions and the organizations here in Austin. We have many organizations and several synagogues in Austin. And so the JCCA attempts to coordinate the different events that are going on in the community. It's also a place for people who are not affiliated. You know, certainly there are individuals and families in Austin who don't belong to a synagogue and who don't belong to any of the organizations. So the Jewish Community Council really tries to provide cultural, social, educational activities and events for this entire microcosm that is the Jewish community of Austin.
Across all ages?
Definitely. We have a place for newborns and all the way up.
For example, let's say for the young, the 3, 4, 5-year-olds, what would they be doing?
Well, one of the events that the Jewish Community Council puts on is Family Days. and it'll be a Sunday perhaps prior to a holiday, a Jewish holiday. And the entire family can go and they can make things that can be used in the home during the holidays. Greeting cards can be made to send to friends or to grandparents, and it's a really exciting, fun time for the kids as well as the parents. We have a preschool that is for children from 2 months to 4 years of age, and it's a Mother's Day out and a preschool of sorts, but it also offers a full-day program for working parents. And in the summer we have a camp for the children, which is Camp Shalom.
Yes, I've read about that, and that seems very interesting and well attended.
The kids love it. They have a lot of fun.
Okay, so we've talked at the one end of the spectrum. What about at the other end of the spectrum? What about the senior citizens?
Well, the Jewish Community Council of Austin tries to meet the needs of the frail elderly in our community. There is a telephone assurance program.
And what is that?
Where people are called daily so that they know that someone is thinking about them.
Okay.
If they have needs, someone can try to help them to take care of these needs. And just to know that there's someone who's aware that they're there and who cares about them and lets them know that we care about them. And for this group also, there is an errand program that helps them to do their errands. And if they would like, there's transportation to go to services, religious services on the weekend. Some of this group can also participate in other programs that we have. We have a very active 55 and over group, two
Really?
groups.
Okay.
Yes. One of them is our friendship group, and they meet at the Jewish Community Council on Jollyville, and they have a Rap with the Rabbi, which both of my rabbis here have participated in. And they may have another speaker, another program, a hot meal, and then they can stay and socialize. So that's one group, the friendship group. And then another group is the Young at Heart. And they basically do things away from the Jewish Community Council, and they go to cultural events. This last year they went to Houston for an event. They go to ballets and just really go out and have a great time together.
That's neat, really. Very, very much so. Mark, there's something that I have seen or felt as I've talked with people about the Jewish tradition, and that is there's an awful lot, there's some very strong bonds within a family and the family role in terms of ritual responsibility in the home. I think that's different than many of the other traditions that we have. Can you elaborate just a little bit on some of the things that you see and observe?
Sure. Jewish tradition speaks not only of synagogue ritual, but it speaks of how we live on a day-to-day basis in our homes, in our businesses, out on the street, and in the synagogue. Because it is a day-to-day way of living, many of the rituals are based in the home. The dietary laws, how we eat, are generally observed at home. The laws concerning the Sabbath and traditions of Sabbaths or holidays, even many life cycle events, are observed in people's homes. A very small part of the Sabbath is going to services at the synagogue, either on Friday night or on Saturday morning. A much larger part is celebrated at a family meal on Friday night or Saturday noon after services, or being together as a family on Saturday afternoon. Jewish holidays are the same way. There are celebratory meals which are eaten at home with friends, with family, with guests, which give a lot of the flavor to Jewish rituals and to Jewish life. Perhaps one of the most famous of those is the Passover Seder, the meal that we eat at home on the first night or two of Passover. That is a rather elaborate ritual which is done around the dining room table with extended family and friends, and is perhaps one of the best loved and most observed rituals in the Jewish tradition. You might say another one is lighting candles on Hanukkah, that holiday that comes so close to Christmas. That too is a home-centered ritual and one that is enjoyed by most Jewish families. I think some of the more powerful moments in Jewish tradition are celebrated in the home and not necessarily in the synagogue.
I think that's really interesting. You were going to say something, Curry.
Well, I wanted to pick up on what Mark just said, because that points to one of the important functions that Hillel has at the university, because for many of our students, they're unable to be at home
Right.
for Jewish holidays or during other significant times from a religious point of view in their lives. And Hillel needs to function as a surrogate family or a home away from home for those students. And I'm talking not only about students from foreign countries, but students from even the state of Texas, which, as we know, is large enough that you can't always get home for a holiday or for a Sabbath or for a particularly important event.
I would add to something that Kerry said. One of the major tasks that we've had in the Jewish community, and I'm sure it's not unique to us, is that because Austin has grown so much and because the Jewish community has grown so much, many of our families are not native to Austin, many are not native to Texas. And within the context of our religious communities, or even at the JCC, we have tried to create surrogate families that meet outside of the synagogue. We have specific groups in Hebrew, they're called chavurot, or fellowship groups, in which families get together on a monthly basis to socialize, to celebrate Jewish holidays, to study together, to get involved in a social action project. We do many things to help our members try to build surrogate families, to recreate the extended family sense that they might have back in their home community, but because they live here in Austin, a couple of thousand miles away from their home community, we recreate that through special groups.
So there are very, very strong ties, and whether they can literally be realized, or whether we attempt to substitute for those in the absence, is a significant part of that whole process, really. Mm-hmm. Something that the books, everything is prepared in Hebrew, or at least I think of it as being prepared in Hebrew. Where does one acquire that?
There are a variety of ways to acquire Hebrew literacy. In our congregation and in other congregations, our children attend religious school from pre-K, and through second grade they go only on Sunday mornings. Then starting in third grade through seventh grade, they attend also Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons. And those afternoon sessions are spent primarily studying the Hebrew language. As a college student who wished to study Hebrew could take Hebrew classes at the University of Texas or at the Hillel Foundation. Sure. We have adult educational Hebrew classes for people who don't know even the letters of the alphabet or how to recognize or read the language. We have different kinds of Hebrew literacy and ritual literacy courses at the synagogue. We are constantly trying to educate members of the community, and I think I know what Harriet's going to tell you.
Okay, Harriet.
One of the other programs is also for adults, and there's an adult bat mitzvah and bar mitzvah class. And 3 years ago, I was fortunate enough to be able to study, and I became a bat mitzvah. And it was a very exciting time for me. Now I understand the service, and I can go in and I can chant and I can read the Hebrew, and it's a wonderful program. I encourage any woman that's interested. I know that they're going to be starting a new group in January, and it's a wonderful experience.
Now, you've got to at least help me a little bit. How long were you in class?
I studied for about a year. And we met weekly every Sunday at someone's home, and we had a teacher, and different women helped us to learn our Hebrew as well. And then we studied the different portions of the Bible, the Torah portions, and we tried to help educate each other as well.
That's neat, really.
So instead of doing it at 13, we did it a little bit later in life. We had mothers and grandmothers and everything.
You mentioned some life cycle opportunities or part of the Jewish religious life. I think of bar mitzvah, of confirmation. Are there other things along that path?
Sure. Going back a few years from bar mitzvah, there are rituals of initiation into the Jewish community. I think it's well known that at 8 days old in the Jewish community, Jewish males are circumcised.
Yes.
That's a ritual that generally takes place at home. And it's a celebratory ritual as we bring a Jewish boy into the covenant of Abraham and Sarah. A similar ritual, without the physical part, obviously takes place for a young girl, a baby naming ceremony. And that, too, takes place in the home. At the other end of the spectrum, the Jewish tradition, as well as all other traditions, has elaborate rituals for death and mourning. There are traditions about visiting the sick. There are traditions for entertaining the bride and the groom during times of celebration. There are a variety of things we do inside a home, which adds a lot of flavor to Jewish living.
Harriet, if you were to look at a specific outreach program, which one would come to your mind that typifies to the very best the outreach of the JCC?
Well, you know, there are many.
I know it's a tough
Is
question.
there one that you're interested in that I could elaborate for you?
That we might find in the community which we wouldn't be aware of, okay?
Well, one is the Jewish Social Services Program, and that is headed by a woman by the name of Jane Kretschmeyer.
Okay.
And this is for people who are experiencing an emergency or in a time of need. And through this program, they can be counseled, they can get information, or they can be referred. Since there are so many different areas and aspects of the Jewish Community Council, if anyone would like to know more and has some need, they're welcome to call the Jewish Community Council, and that number is 331-1144.
As we draw the program to a close today, Harriet, the one thing I believe you've got a big occasion coming up this fall.
We certainly do.
And what is that?
That is the Austin Jewish Book Fair.
Okay.
All right,
and when does that start?
That date is November the 5th through the November the 13th.
Okay.
And we will be bringing distinguished authors from throughout the country to speak. We have 6 authors coming, and we are very, very excited about it.
I really do want to thank all of you as my guests today. That have really helped open our eyes and to develop an understanding of the Jewish faith tradition, how it touches the lives of many in our community. On behalf of the Austin Area Conference of Churches, I'm Dick Hudson, inviting you to be with us at this time next week as we continue our series, the Austin Faith Dialogue. Good day. I really appreciate it.